Hello, everybody. Welcome to Medicine and Science, only on the Pod TV network. And we're broadcasting live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Also, we have our own Roku channel, so you can watch all the Pod TV shows there. And we have our own channel on Amazon Fire. You can watch all the Pod TV shows there. And this today, we're going to discuss something that's very important for medicine and science. It deals with the Center for Disease Control, otherwise known as the CDC. And the reason why this is important is they have some new announcements to make, and frankly, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know what they're doing up there. I did see this quote by one of the people in the CDC: "Don't trust experts. Trust a guy at the diner." Now, they didn't say trust a guy at the diner, but that's what I'm saying. Okay, if you're not going to trust the experts, who are you going to trust? The guy at the diner who has no educational criteria whatsoever? So the CDC has some very serious problems. And this is the United States. So our viewers around the world, you can follow this. It's drama in the USA. But with that, we're not going to bring an attorney on who heads Health and Human Resources. I like to get my medical opinions from medical doctors. And with that, we're going to bring in Dr. Michael Patmos, who you might well know, who's actually board certified in internal medicine, to discuss what's going on in the CDC. So with that, none other than we'll turn it over to our they call them subject matter experts.
Good morning. Good morning, Nick. Good morning to all the viewers. Yes, I am indeed board certified in internal medicine. I also have added qualifications in infection control and hospital epidemiology. So this discussion is well within my area of expertise. This is an extremely important video today, podcast today, and here's why. For those of you who follow public health, the past 5-6 days has been focused almost entirely on the second CDC ACIP meeting that just concluded about 5 days ago. At that meeting, the CDC ACIP, that's the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, issued new guidance regarding universal neonatal hepatitis B vaccination. Since 1991, all babies born in the United States get vaccinated for hepatitis B. And the reason why is maternal fetal transmission is a big problem. And a lot of times moms don't know that they're infected. So to protect the babies, all babies get vaccinated against hepatitis B. That strategy has been in place since 1991, and it has been extraordinarily effective. It's been one of the most effective vaccination strategies we have ever done. It has reduced neonatal hepatitis B infection from about 20,000 cases a year to less than 100, down to about 80 cases a year. For those who don't know what hepatitis B infection is, it is a very, very bad viral infection of the liver. You can get acute hepatitis from it. You can get fulminant hepatic necrosis and die. I have seen patients go from healthy to dead in just days with acute hepatitis B. But it can also lead to chronic hepatitis, which in turn leads to cirrhosis of the liver with all of the complications attendant to that, as well as hepatocellular carcinoma, a very bad very, very bad liver cancer. Around the world, hepatitis B is a major problem, a major health problem, kills millions of people around the world every year. The United States did a fantastic job of stopping almost completely the neonatal transmission of hepatitis B until a few days ago. Just a few days ago, the CDC, ACIP, none of the doctors who are on that committee are qualified, made this absurd recommendation. They left the recommendation for vaccination for children whose mothers are known positive or who are of unknown status. They can still continue to be vaccinated. But if the mom tests negative for hepatitis B sometime in her pregnancy, then the decision to vaccinate the child should be left up to the parent and the doctor. Now, the problem with that is that the patient could have been infected the day before. They could have been negative on Tuesday and positive on Wednesday. So to mitigate against that risk, we vaccinate everybody, and that vaccine has been incredibly effective. On the other side of it, the question is, well, is there some harm from the vaccine? And the answer to that is no. This vaccine is ridiculously safe and has been proven to be safe for decades in many, many large studies. During the ACIP meeting, Dr. Robert Malone, who's the vice chair of that committee, said something really bizarre. He said that we have to acknowledge, quote, the elephant in the room, that there's no data to prove that multiple doses of vaccines early in childhood aren't a cause of problems because of the adjuvants that are in there, such as aluminum. Let me be really clear. There is no evidence to support that elephant in the room comment. There is no elephant in the room. The only elephant is the pink elephants that are floating around that he's seeing that are delusional. There is no elephant in the room. There's nothing to support his concern. His concern is completely hypothetical and created out of thin air. And so they went ahead and they passed this resolution, It passed by a vote of 8-3. Three people dissented, including Dr. Meisner, who is an infectious disease doctor, and I believe Dr. Hibeln voted no. But we don't know the others. They don't tell you, name by name who voted yes or no. But some of them did come out and make public comment. Now, here's what's my spin on this that is no one else is talking about. This is a very big issue in public health, infection control. And it's been a buzz since the CDC made this decision. Everybody is talking about it. New York Times, Washington Post. It's gotten a lot of attention. And all of the people commenting on it have focused on the fact that it's not a good evidence-based decision, that the benefit of the vaccine is clear and unmistakable. There is no harm as described by Malone, the elephant in the room. That's a red herring. There is no such concern. And people have focused on that as that's the problem. Indeed, that is one of the problems with this decision, and this guidance from CDC. But there are two more that nobody else has talked about. But I will tell you today why this decision is even worse. So, first of all, on the merits, it doesn't stand up. There is no elephant in the room. The concerns voiced by Malone, there's no support for those being legitimate concerns. All we know is that this vaccine strategy of universal neonatal hepatitis B vaccination is a great idea and it has been proven to be a great idea. On the science, on the merits, there's no question it was a bad decision, but there's two more elements. If you look at it through a bioethical discernment, the lens of bioethics, and do an ethical discernment, there are four principles of bioethics: beneficence, non-maleficence, autonomy, justice. If you look at it through that lens, this decision is unethical. And here's why. It removes a known benefit. Universal neonatal HPV immunization, vaccination, produces a known benefit. That is a reduction of hepatitis B and all that goes along with it. And so you remove that beneficence and insert maleficence, insert harm. The harm is by inserting an elephant in the room that's not there, you are going to allow more children to be exposed, which will definitely result in more cases of hepatitis B. So you have exchanged a good for a bad. That is unethical, and it fails ethical discernment on that level. I would really love for Dr. Art Kaplan, our leading bioethicist, to comment on this, because I think this is a very important issue. The decision by the ACIP was unethical, but there's more to it than that. But wait, there's more. Not only is the decision unethical, there is another element to it. Under the Medical Practice Act, and many of the people on the ACIP are licensed physicians holding active medical licenses in various jurisdictions. Under the Medical Practice Act, all states have a Medical Practice Act, and the Medical Practice Act reads essentially the same everywhere you go. Under the law, a physician is obligated, when making a public statement using the power of their medical license and the power of their authority, when they make a public statement, it has to be evidence-based, and it has to be based on sound clinical judgment, clinical reasoning. It must be ethical. And so this decision, this recommendation by CDC, which was unfounded by science and unethical, also rises to the level of professional misconduct for the physicians who signed off on it and who advocated for it. A physician cannot, under the law, make bad recommendations like this that cause harm. To do so is professional misconduct. And there are multiple statutes in the state law in Maryland and in California and other places. I have 14 state licenses. I serve as a consultant to medical boards. This is patently unprofessional misconduct in almost every state you go for a physician to endorse a position like this. And by the ACIP putting their name on this as an official proclamation, they have acted unprofessionally and have technically violated the Medical Practice Act in their states. And they are at risk for legal ramifications because of it. And I hope someone follows through on this. Every one of those physicians is licensed somewhere, should have a complaint filed with their state medical boards because this action is not only unethical, it is also professional misconduct. And so we are living in a strange time right now. We have physicians who are unqualified. There's nobody on that ACIP committee who's a hepatologist. The only one who's really infectious disease doctor is Dr. Meisner, and he voted the right way. The rest are not infectious disease doctors. They're not hepatologists. They're not experts in hepatitis B. I'm not sure any of them have actually managed a case of hepatitis B, but you have unqualified people making bad decisions based on bad data over concerns about an elephant in the room that doesn't exist in an unethical manner in a way that violates professional conduct. So that's my video for today. I hope the message gets out to someone out there that this needs to be pursued, not just to resist their recommendations. I mean, it's one thing, CDRAP and other organizations, American Academy of Pediatrics, of Infectious Disease Society of America, they've come out and said we have to reject these. No, we don't just have to reject. We need to reject these recommendations. We need to do more than that. We need to hold the physicians on the ACIP accountable for unethical behavior and professional misconduct under the Medical Practice Act, because this qualifies. That's my comments. Any questions?
So it becomes a legal issue, it sounds like.
Yes.
Dr. Patmos, because of the Medical Practice Act. I see when I was looking at this, I was confused and dismayed, because the CDC for years had reputation to be basically the gold standard of medical science and practice, and people looked up to it for guidance. Then when this came down, I was going, this didn't seem to make any sense to me as a layman, not as a and as an attorney, but not as an attorney pretending to be a medical doctor, which right now I believe Kennedy is trying to pretend that he knows about it. But just empirically, it looks like when you have the high degree of people that the babies that get hepatitis B, and then the amount of people that die, and it looks like the cancer, it's a delayed death. In other words, they get it, and then and the other thing is that I found quite shocking, that I think people need to know, at least this is my reading, I'm not a medical doctor, it says that once you get it, there is no cure.
Correct.
In other words, it's not like, hey, I got it, now go see my doctor and they'll give me something, it'll go away. Because that's where, laymen believe that can happen. But at least my reading of it, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that, okay, you don't take the vaccine, then you get Hep B. Okay, then you run to your doctor, there is no cure. You just basically shot yourself in the foot. So I'd like, if you could expound on that a little bit more, because I think people may not realize that this is a death sentence, but there's no cure.
Okay, so hepatitis B, this is a very important disease, a very important virus. If my memory serves me, hepatitis B was the first virus identified in the late 1960s. I can remember the name, by Dr. Baruch Blumberg, who got the Nobel Prize for it. Discovered the hepatitis B virus. It's a very contagious virus. It's transmitted primarily by blood and body fluids. So you do see it quite often in the drug abusing population and in certain people with certain high risk lifestyles, but it's not exclusive to them. Anybody can get hepatitis B. You can be exposed to it and get it. The virus produces a range of clinical manifestations. It can be asymptomatic. You can have it and not feel sick at all, reproduce the virus, spread it, shed it, and have no idea that you're infected with it. You can have mild disease, in which case you'll get jaundice and your eyes get yellow and you have fever and you feel kind of sick for a couple of weeks, and then you can recover. You can clear the virus. Some people clear the virus from their body, but not all. You can develop severe acute hepatitis B called fulminant hepatic necrosis. And unless you have seen this disease firsthand, and I want to parenthetically, I doubt, except for perhaps for Dr. Meisner, I doubt that anybody on the ACIP committee has ever managed a patient with acute fulminant hepatitis B, as I have. If you've seen that disease, you'll never forget it. I literally had a patient who was my private practice patient. I followed him for years, healthy, retired guy. He got acute hepatitis B, and within 1 week, he went from healthy to dead. His liver completely disintegrated, and he got massive acute liver failure due to just absolute destruction of the liver. His liver enzymes were AST and ALT were in the hundreds of thousands. As bilirubin, I think, went up to like 70. He wasn't just yellow, he was orange. So in any case, that's acute hepatitis B. For the people who don't get that, or get chronic hepatitis as a result, what they're going to end up with is cirrhosis of the liver, like an alcoholic gets. The liver gets hard and scarred, and then they develop esophageal varices. They get all the complications of cirrhosis of the liver with ascites and liver failure and bleeding esophageal varices and so forth. And then the final blessing of chronic hepatitis B is hepatocellular carcinoma, and nasty, nasty cancer for which we don't have a cure. There's treatment. You can try to resect it. There are some chemos and immunological therapies you can give, but basically it is a death sentence. That's what's going to happen as a result of the CDC's action. As a result of their action, some children, I can't tell you exactly how many, but some children will be exposed to hepatitis B in the neonatal period because their moms are unvaccinated, because they're not vaccinated. They will get it, and they will have these bad outcomes. Guaranteed. That's the harm. That's the maleficence. And what you've withdrawn is the beneficence of offering them vaccination. That's what makes it unethical. Yes, hepatitis B is a very bad disease. If you look at the global burden of hepatitis B, it's astronomical. I think about 3.3% of the Earth's population is chronically infected with hepatitis B. There are millions of patients around the world with cirrhosis from hepatitis B and hepatocellular carcinoma. Really, really, really bad disease. If you don't know this disease, if you haven't personally taking care of patients with hepatitis B, sit down. You don't know what you're talking about.
And another question, it wasn't about hepatitis B, but it's another one of the CDC great mistakes in life and everything like that. But apparently a doctor that had been very much involved in a major disease has decided to resign and everything because he was seeing what the CDC was doing. Because apparently for the first time in 37 years, we did not acknowledge AIDS and everything like that on the World AIDS Day and everything like that. So I just saw that John Weiser had retired and resigned. He had been in there at one point and then gotten out, and now he's back out again. But he was very much active in the AIDS fight since the 80s and everything like that. So it looks like he is definitely not pleased with what Trump is doing in terms of AIDS research.
Oh, Mark, a lot of people have resigned. Between the people who've been fired and laid off, the CDC has been gutted. And as far as the resignations, many, I say most, Dr. Ori, Dr. Daskalaskis, a lot of these big names that have been at CDC for many, many years have resigned. They've left. The organization is a shell of its former self. It can't be trusted anymore. And, it's unbelievable. This was the premier infectious disease surveillance and action agency in the world. I mean, we led the world. The CDC led the world, and they've been turned into public enemy number one by Robert F. Kennedy and his colleagues, none of whom are qualified. So you're right. People have quit and resigned. It is it's unthinkable. I mean, literally these people have destroyed our public health infrastructure and the best agency in the world for dealing with this. They've destroyed it.
Yeah, I can see that and everything. They did send out a warning, and I don't know. I mean, it is well, I think they usually come around usually in the summer, but they did warn people that are traveling to the tropics and everything about traveling to foreign countries over the outbreak of untreatable mosquito disease. So how worried should we be if we're going on a cruise about this outbreak? Because this is something that they just released, and they also said that Georgia residents are staying alive longer for those that are thinking that they want to move to Georgia, unlike Nick who moved to Spain.
So Mark, this is why I love infectious diseases. It's a kind of a morose specialty in some ways, because I did a little post a few weeks ago on constantly new emerging infectious diseases. The infectious diseases that we know about, that's one thing, but there's always new ones. These pathogens are evolving continuously. And just in the last 50, 60 years, there have been like 300 new viruses and other pathogens that have emerged. So new viruses, new pathogens always are emerging, and certainly mosquitoes carry a lot of viral path, like dengue. I'm sure you've heard of dengue fever, and that's common in the tropical areas. Well, it's now also occurring in the United States because of global warming. Things have gotten warmer, and now those mosquitoes, these Aedes aegypti mosquito, is now in the United States. So people can get dengue in the southern tier of the United States, in Louisiana and in Florida and other southern subtropical zones. But there are other viruses now. That chikungunya is a new virus recently discovered that's carried by the same mosquito, and it's prevalent in Central America and other tropical countries. There's Zika virus. Obviously we have malaria. There's a lot of these viruses. They never end. This is why you need a CDC, because in most diseases are infectious diseases. And this notion that we need to, take a break from infectious diseases, like somehow we have the luxury to not pay attention to them because they're not important. What do you think most people die of?
Yes, usually infectious diseases and everything. I did have one quick question based on a family friend. It's actually, we consider him a family cousin because he's my uncle's nephew and everything like that. But how much does infectious disease have to do, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, with things like Alzheimer's and dementia and things along those lines? Because I do have a fairly young cousin. He's in his 50s and he's starting to babble incoherently and things along those lines. So we're wondering if he might not be starting to suffer the early signs of one of those diseases and everything like that. But I don't know if that's within
just happen to have some information about that. So dementia, is a umbrella term that describes many different types of dementia. You have senile dementia, the Alzheimer's type, frontotemporal degeneration. There's vascular dementia. There's all sorts of different kinds of dementia, and we don't know the single cause of it. There may be different causes, but here's an important finding. I talked about this previously on this podcast, I believe, a couple of months ago. There's some recent evidence that shows that vaccination against shingles, that's the herpes zoster, varicella zoster virus that causes chickenpox, and then later in life shingles, that if you get vaccinated against that, you have a reduced risk of subsequent Alzheimer's disease. So we now know for a fact that shingles vaccination reduces risk of dementia. So the implication obviously is that when people get herpes zoster, these viruses stay in the central nervous system. They don't go away. They just hide in there. That's causing inflammation, or causes something, perhaps inflammation, which leads to the pathophysiology associated with dementia, and vaccination prevents. So we now know that vaccination not only prevents you from getting shingles, it reduces your risk of dementia. Proven fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dr. Patmos, when we say there's like no harm, there's certain vaccines like this. There's no downside, but there's a lot of upside. Why wouldn't somebody take the vaccine? It doesn't seem to make any logical sense that I wouldn't take a vaccine when I have like no downside and tremendous upside. So
that's a profound. Nick, that is a great question. And it gets at what's wrong with the anti-vax mindset. There are a whole bunch of psychologists and others who have studied the anti-vax mindset and actually identified several personality characteristics. And one of them is these people are very much prone to paranoid thinking. They're conspiracy theorists. They believe things that are not true. And they're right on the edge of having almost a delusional state of mind. The anti-vaxxers don't believe these things are safe. They believe conspiracy theories. They believe that the vaccine will make you magnetic and other kinds of crazy ideas like this. They sincerely believe this, some of them. Others are just, they don't believe it. They're just capitalizing on it. They know that there are people out there who will believe that, and they're trying to pick their pockets. So you have grifters who are milking this for money, and you can make a lot of money as an anti-vaxxer, as an anti-vax doctor. You can get paid, you can give speeches, your stuff on social media will be seen widely. The grifters in this world, Kennedy is one of them, are making a fortune. Aaron Siri is making a fortune suing over this. He's got 100 lawyers working for his law firm suing over vaccines. So there's grifters, but then there's these people who are sincere believers, and they're just misled. They've been told something that is not true, and because their personality type, they're prone to delusional thinking, prone to paranoid thinking. They believe when we say there's no evidence that these vaccines are harmful, they say, "Oh, I don't believe that. They've got to be harmful." That's what they want to believe. It's a religion. It is not based on fact. It's based upon a belief system that is delusional.
Okay. All right. So there's just really no logic behind it, because I didn't see from a logic train, I would say that the people that aren't taking certain vaccines, they're derailed. I mean, it doesn't seem to make any sense because you have no downside, tremendous upside. But this whole thing of getting liver cancer, it seems to me that also the studies show that it's delayed. In other words, you get the Hep B, and then after a while you contract liver cancer and you just die. But from an attorney standpoint, and this is one of the advantages the anti-vaxxers have, they just buried the plaintiff. It's hard to file a lawsuit when you're dead. So are the anti-vaxxers playing off this fact that they're bearing the litigation, basically?
Well, I think I'm not a lawyer. I defer to your expertise, but I think in terms of a physician-patient interaction, there has to be a plaintiff, there has to be a case to file a negligence or malpractice action. But in terms of professional conduct, a physician, let me give you a graphic example. Let's say I were to come out and argue that if you're exposed to rabies, you should not be treated. Don't get the rabies shots. Well, that's obviously wrong professional misconduct. I can be held accountable by the medical board just for saying that in a public venue. It doesn't require a specific plaintiff. So what the CDC ACIP has done should allow for pursuing this with the state medical boards as unprofessional conduct, because it's an unethical decision, and it flies in the face of the rules of the Medical Practice Act, which require that we make evidence-based decisions. We can't stray from that which is well established and give bad advice.
Right. And the thing is, and there's no evidence based that statements that Mr. Malone or made has any evidence behind it whatsoever. He's just blurting statements out for whatever reason. So yeah, this is yet to be played out, and not just in the court of public opinion, but probably end up in regular courts. Like I said, I was shocked and dismayed when I saw this, and I wanted to hear from a real doctor. I certainly didn't want to hear from RFK, because I do not get my medical advice from an environmental attorney. But we do want to thank Dr. Michael Patmos, who is board certified in internal medicine with another specialty in infectious diseases, from coming on our podcast. And we want to thank our viewers in the United States and around the world, and stay tuned for more of this on Medicine and Science, only on the Pod TV network. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Peace.